everyone. Welcome to the episode. We are joined with Pamela today. Pamela, thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to talk to you.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
And today we're going to cover, well, Pamela's story, really, your experience of eating disorder recovery, which incredibly, like you'd had your eating disorder for close to 40 years when you began recovery in your early 50s. So we actually put out on stories, does anybody have a topic they'd like to discuss on the podcast? And I had several messages back talking about recovery with aging, recovery when you're older, recovery when you've had the eating disorder for decades, and how difficult that can feel to think, am I ever going to be able to get better? And motivation for recovery, and finding the right treatment, support, resources, all of that sort of stuff. So hopefully we can cover some of that today with you, Pamela, in relation to your own story and experiences and what helped you to get to where you are now. So would you mind just starting with, I guess, a bit of your story, like how did you go about eating disorder recovery in your early 50s? Like what motivated you to make that change? How did you go about it?
Yeah, thank you. I think it was a confluence of events, but I'm someone who, like my genetics, when I restrict for a long time, at some point my body and my brain rebels. And that had been my history over the 40 years of an eating disorder. And I hit a period where my priorities were shifting. My parents were aging and they needed more help. And my dad was in late stages of dementia. And I remember thinking one morning, and here I am worried about whether or not I'm going to fit into my spring wardrobe.
Mm.
And I just realized how tired I was of that mental chatter. And like, if you'd asked me, do you like yourself? I probably would have said, well, I don't dislike myself. Like I never thought of someone that like was abusing myself or didn't like myself, but I realized that I was just fighting with all this negative chatter all the time. And I was tired of it directing almost every decision behind the scenes. Um,
Mm.
and I had attempted recovery once in my late 40s. And I think what jump started that was there was more information online and somehow it was coming into my feed and I ran into the writings of Jenny Schaefer and Carolyn Costin and the seed was planted. Because up until then, like recovery wasn't even on my radar. Like the only thing I thought I needed to recover was my ability to restrict. Like just I was, you're steeped in that mindset. And it was also a mindset that was reinforced in my home. And so, like, no matter how sick I was, even if my life was really terrible, it just never dawned on me. I didn't realize recovery was a thing. That feels so silly to say that I didn't realize recovery was a thing until my 40s. But, um, and so I tried to do it on my own without telling anybody. And you can imagine how that worked. Like that lasted for like a month, maybe month and a half. And then, like I said, I think in my 50s, just things shifting with my family and becoming more aware of just how exhausting it is to be living with that chatter all the time.
I
Yeah.
sometimes wonder that, like, as time goes on, is there a benefit in a way of you've got more time to be sick of it and more evidence that it doesn't change unless you change, kind of thing? As
I
hard,
think
as
so.
much as there's
Yeah.
things that get harder as time goes on and it can become more ingrained in your brain, that kind of thing. But equally, you do have that experience of like, this is just not working for me. Like, you can look back over like years accumulating and be like, this is not how I want to be spending my time.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I think you're right, Meg. Um, and that the thought that it's re that it's difficult to rewire something that you've been living with for so long. I think I was in denial when I first started recovery. Like I knew I was in my 50s, but in my head I was still like mid 30s. So it didn't even dawn on me at that point that maybe it wouldn't happen. Um, thank goodness, because that might have held me back a little bit. But I would love to tell people my age or older who are going through this that I entered recovery at the same time as someone who was 30 years younger than I am and our everybody's timeline is different, but ours was very similar. Yeah.
That's
Um,
incredible. Because I do get a lot of messages from people saying it's been too long, it's too ingrained in my brain, like the behaviors have been there too long. I can't change to another direction. But I mean, you're living proof of
mm,
it. But how did you find that? Like, did you find it was harder? Did you feel because it had been so long practicing the
um,
behaviors?
yeah, my first question to those people would be, well, what's too long? And I think, and of course, there's part of you that's going to have all kinds of answers for that, the part of you that's steeped in it. Um, I think what really helped me was joining that online support group with other people who were struggling, because there was someone in that support group who was in her 70s.
Mm.
Um, and that was really inspiring and motivational. And I think another thing that helped me, a significant help for me, was really understanding what diet culture is. Like it's a phrase that gets tossed around and it's something I never really thought about. I was just, and I also thought it was something, this is going to make no sense because I can't even make sense of it when I'm saying it, but I just thought it was something outside of me that I wasn't even affected by. Like I didn't realize I was inside. It was like the Truman Show. Like all of a sudden, like someone punctures the bubble and you realize you've been living in an alternate reality. But learning about that and how omnipresent it is and how oppressive and how damaging, and it got me really angry, and that anger helped me significantly in my recovery. And I remember thinking, I was angry at people in my family, and I was angry at the culture at large. And I remember thinking, like, and I was learning at that point about set point theory. And I remember thinking, like, how dare anybody like tell me there's something wrong with this body that I didn't choose and isn't asking to be abused. Like, I just let that anger fuel me for a while. And to a point where I'm sure there was a place where I was insufferable, like on my soapbox, like with the megaphone, wanting to tell everybody about the evils of diet culture. Um, but that anger
Mm.
helped a lot. It helped me to, um, yeah, push forward at times.
And like educating yourself on it then.
Hmm.
Like, did you
Yeah,
have you got like resources that you found helpful, podcasts, social media?
yeah, yeah. Let's see. Learning about health at every size was really helpful. Learning about the Minnesota starvation,
Mhm.
learning about set point theory in terms of online resources. I followed you. You came at, I was sort of in the beginning of my recovery when I found your channel, and it was the first time, and I felt like I had therapy by proxy because you were so wonderful about sharing things that your therapist had said to you or tools that she had suggested. And it was the first time I'd heard the term opposite actions.
Mm.
And that was like, wow, that was like a light bulb moment. So your channel was invaluable. Mia's, I discovered Mia Finley, Tabitha Farrar, um, someone by the name, I think now her last name is Orris, Elisa Orris, Follow the Intuition.
Mm.
Trying to think who else. Those were I think there were other people too that I would not recommend now. Like when you're new and trying to find reliable, that's a whole nother topic for conversation, right? Finding reliable
True.
recovery sources. Um, because it was easy to get roped into the eating disorder mindset of recovering to look like someone else.
Mm. Mm.
And like I said, I was a little bit in denial, or denial's not quite the right word. Like I knew what my age was, but my soul was 35 or something. And
Mm.
I think I would get wrapped into this narrative that not only would I look like this person physically, but like I'd somehow be younger too.
Mm.
Um, and that was difficult because there's not a lot of recovery. I mean, there's so much more information out there now for older women, but it's still not enough. There's still
Mm.
not a lot. Um, yeah. So those, and then like I said, if I was really in doubt or having one of those days where I was really nervous or scared or doubting that I was doing the right thing, um, I think I mentioned before we started recording that I just felt like I was getting my PhD in recovery, and I just made that my mission. I made it my project. I made it my identity for a while. It's something that helped me move away from the eating
Mm.
disorder identity, was
I've heard
adopting
before.
the recovery
Becoming like
identity.
as passionate and as well, not that you're passionate about an eating disorder, but channeling that same kind of energy into learning about it, for you getting angry about it. Also, I guess taking action as well, like converting what you're learning. Because I think as well, you can become a person that knows everything, as every single insight into your eating disorder, but translating that insight into action, again, like nothing changes if nothing changes kind of thing. So
Hmm.
you must have also found a way to learn this information and carry it forward into your behaviors, like to make a change because of it.
Yeah, yes, I did. Thank you. There was a lot of fear because of my age. Like the eating disorder part of you is going to find any excuse to hold you back, like you're too old. And so when I was learning about unconditional permission to eat, I believed in it, but I did think it was conditional by your age. Like
Mm,
it worked for everybody, as if, but once you get a certain age, no, no, you don't have unconditional permission to eat because, and there's all this fear mongering around menopause and weight gain. And it reminded me of that fear mongering when you go to college too, like the freshman 15. Um, and so I was dabbling for a while when I first, because I didn't, I was learning everything on a lot of stuff online, but I wasn't really working with a therapist or a professional. So I didn't know for a long time what to trust and what I couldn't trust. And I remember going on um, different sites like Tabitha's or Lisa and asking the question, yeah, but if you're like my age, what's the, you know, you're so focused on calories and you're so focused on weight change. And it took me a while for that mindset shift to occur. And at some point, I remember saying to myself, well, whether your body changes after menopause or not, you still have to surrender to what, like, if you really want freedom, you still have to surrender to what your body wants to be.
it's
And
outward
so
bound.
yeah, so I had to sit with that for a while. I had to really, think about that. But it was that slowly getting the confidence to move into the surrendering that um, helped shift something for me.
I love
Yeah.
that word surrender. I find that that was such a part of my recovery as well, was surrendering, feeling like I just had to let go of that really tight control of needing to have everything just so and my body just so and everything just so. And it was just so freeing when you get to that point. And it must have helped you as well, Pamela, when you've kind of, you are going through the menopause and you are getting older, because that's something that I feel like, having gone through recovery, I feel like my body changing, I feel like I'm dealing with it a lot better than somebody who's maybe not gone through that process, because you've had to develop those skills to, yeah, adjust to your body's changes as you do recover from your eating disorder anyway.
Yes, that's exactly. And I think that's one of the benefits of going through recovery at an older age is that you do exactly as you said, Sophia, you have the tools to help you cope with other things that are changing. Like when I was going, 2018 was also the year I hit menopause for good. I was done. And I remember thinking, this is so unfair. Like younger people are getting their lush hair and they're excited to be getting their period back and
Mm,
their libido's raging. And I just felt cheated at first.
Mm.
I was like, this is so unfair. And I didn't again, I was in denial. I thought, why isn't my hair getting better? Like I'm making all these changes, I'm in recovery, and all of a sudden I've got like hair that looks like straw and my skin's changing. Um, but as I was going through recovery and learning the tools to surrender and accept, I feel like I'm in such a better place than a lot of women my age who are, you know, worried, considering Botox, considering this, considering that. And it's just like you said, Sophie, it's just like this sigh of freedom and peace to not be so wrapped up in that.
mm, mm.
Um, and to be, at this point, being fully recovered, having done a lot of work about connecting to your values
Yes.
and realizing, I mean, at some point I would say to myself, this was a mantra I would say to myself in recovery. I wasn't a big affirmation person, but I remember saying, what it's not what kind of body do I want to be, but what kind of person do I want to be?
Wow.
Love
Love
that.
that. I love it.
Yeah, you're
I
not
can't.
recovering for a body, you're recovering for a life.
Mhm.
and the type
Yeah.
of person you want to be, the way you want to show up in the world for yourself and for other people. Like that's what you're doing it for. And would you say that that is what helped you like kind of create this new identity, Pamela? Like you were saying, you had that recovery identity, and that is what kind of got you through that period of time. How did you then shift into like a recovered identity? How did it feel kind of like no longer having that eating disorder identity or the recovering from an eating disorder identity? Like was that like liberating, like finding new space in your life for interests? Or was that kind of daunting? How did that happen? Was it a slow process or did it kind of just come to you quite quickly?
I think it was a slow unfolding. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a certain point in recovery, toward the end of recovery, like maybe the last year, where you start to feel that sense of empowerment. And that felt so much better than the attachment to the eating disorder self. I mean, there was still a lot of grief and moments of wishing I had that old body again. Then I would do the like, what kind of person do you want to be, what rather than what kind of body do you want to be. um and I think there was like subtle internal shifts, like you said, Sophie, you start to feel more at peace. I started to feel more empowered and I was less angry. I was coming off my soapbox a little bit. And there were certain things that I've always loved, like reading. Then I realized as I was going further through recovery that I wasn't really reading. Like there were years when I just, everything seems more vibrant when you get on the other side and you just feel like more in tune to things. So everything just, I remember not understanding the word expansive when people would say your life is going to expand when you get on the other side of recovery. And I was thinking, what does that mean? Like, I'm going to become a world traveler. I'm going to be like living the life of my dreams. Like, I didn't understand what that meant and I didn't trust it. But when I got into the other side of recovery, I realized, oh, it's like it's just like it, being more in tune and open to like everyday things and how that makes, this is going to sound, I don't know how to say this without sounding kind of like earthy, crunchy in the clouds, but it's like a soul expansion. Like you're just at peace and you can appreciate the big and the small in ways that you can't when there's a little part of your brain that's always looking at the world through the lens of numbers and weight and what are people thinking of me. And um,
That's so powerful. It reminds me of what you talk about, Meg, of like that idea of like having like a sense of life and like it going from like black and white to color. Like
yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's completely changing. It does feel though that you have kind of got very spiritual through your recovery journey as well, which is really beautiful too.
yeah, yes, I agree. Thank you. Yeah, there's just a connection there. Carolyn calls it the soul self, and I didn't have that language. But like I said,
Mm.
it changes seemed in a, like beyond language. They were just these subtle shifts, and all of a sudden, I remember in our training, she talks. There's a bit about beginner's mind,
Mm.
and I feel like that's how I approach the world a little bit more. Sometimes that sense of awe when you see something and it stops you in the tracks, and you realize you're just there in the moment, appreciating it. But it also helped me in other areas of life. Like one day I was at a diner having breakfast and there was a screaming baby. And like when I was in my eating disorder, I was like, oh my God, it's ruining my meal. I can't believe these people take this kid out. Like how awful. Like there should be a special restaurant just for parents and babies. Sorry, I know your moms. And
I
but
thought the same. I thought the same as well. Don't worry, pre being a parent, don't worry.
and then I was like, oh, you know what? But what if this was the last baby I was ever gonna see or hear on Earth? And it totally shifted. I was like, oh, what a beautiful, like I could enjoy my breakfast. But it's those little subtle shifts and those tools that in recovery that pop up in unexpected ways, right? Like now, like if I'm looking at something, like if I'm coming back into aging, right, and coming to terms with like the way my skin's changing, now I can surrender and just be, well, it is what it is, and I can focus on taking care of it and finding like, I don't know, lotion or whatever it is. But um that yeah, there's just that acceptance that brings peace, and it just shows up in ways you can't imagine.
I so agree with you. Like, I found that I could do the same things that I was doing before, but I just experienced them in a completely different way. It's not like I transformed into this phenomenal new version of me with a new life. I could literally be
Mm,
doing the exact same activity, like listening to a podcast or just reading the news online, but I was actually taking it in and I was like engaged. And it
mm.
wasn't like, how can I occupy myself for the next 30 minutes until I'm allowed to eat this? And then I've got 2 hours to fill until I go out, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't just trying
Yeah.
to get through the day and be productive and occupied and engaged and distracted from food. Like when food's off your mind, you're just like freed to actually take things in and engage properly. And it's like a completely different experience of often the same activity.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get clients who are afraid of what to do if they have that free space because they've been so consumed in
It's
the eating
terrifying.
disorder for so long. Terrifying. And I was too. But at some point I would tell myself, I have to have faith. It felt like blind faith for a lot.
Uh-huh.
And let, I just have to be open to the what if. And it wasn't, I'm making it sound like it was easy. It's not like I woke up one day and said, oh, I'm just going to be open to the what if, and it was easy. But slowly just keep reminding myself of that. And also clients that are afraid of what will fill that space because they feel like they didn't like the person they were before they had the eating disorder. And um, helping them to see or to understand that they're not the same person they were before they had the eating disorder, and that everything they're learning about themselves along the way and everything they're learning about themselves through recovery is creating a creating a space for them to just creating the space to have that transformation and realize that you've learned so much along the way and you're not going back to that person. It's not like you're becoming a whole another person, but you're going to be connecting to the parts that maybe were hurt at the time that you couldn't connect to, and that's why you didn't like yourself.
I love that so much because it's true, isn't it? We all evolve and change, and so many of us could cringe at things like the qualities of us about 5 years ago, whether you have an eating disorder or not. Like as age goes on, like as you get older, you do change as a person naturally. So you're not
Mm,
necessarily going to go back to like you 15 years ago before you had your eating disorder. Like you've got all of that life experience, and actually recovery just evolves you into such a different person. I feel like people who have gone through recovery or even have an eating disorder generally are very empathetic. Like they really
mm.
are very sensitive to how other people feel. So you're right. It's yeah, an experience in itself and helping you to evolve to who you're going to be. Um,
Yeah, yeah. And I think you become more empathetic, and you, like, I was very judgmental when I was in my eating disorder, but like just not of me, but of everybody. And that was kind of a wake-up call too. Like, ooh, didn't realize how judgmental I really was, and giving myself grace and understanding where it came from and where I was absorbing all the messaging. But yeah, so the peace and being less judgmental and more curious, I just feel like recovery stoked my curiosity. Like
mm.
I used to joke that I wanted to get a bicycle because if you're biking, people can't stop and talk to you. You can just like wave and keep going. You don't have to interact with people. Whereas if you're out for a walk, like, oh my God, I might run into someone and they might want to have a conversation with me. And now when I go on walks, I meet like the most interesting people and and open to this life story. So there's more that I just feel you're just more at peace at yourself and in a place to be curious and open.
Like more capacity.
Yeah, yeah.
As the eating disorder moves out and you've kind of then faced that space of like, who am I? What does life look like now? Like, how did you go about filling that space? Like you mentioned you'd always loved reading, but were there things that you'd never kind of had time or capacity to look into, and then you had to start trying out new hobbies or interests?
Yeah, I didn't, the only new interest, let me think about this. For me, it was returning to things that I had let go, like reading and um, I've always loved going to art galleries and so getting back into the arts and going to the theater and just being available more to friends, like being able to socialize more. Um, I'd love to say I travel more because that's like a great love, but I just haven't had yeah, I just haven't been in place to be able to make that happen yet. So it was more returning to things that I loved in the past. And some things yoga was something I got into initially for the wrong reasons. Like I told myself I was getting into it for the mindfulness, but my eating disorder had other ideas what yoga was going to do for me. But that kind of coincided with aging too. Like there were certain things that were starting to hurt, and yoga helped make that better. And then, and when I was more open to the mindfulness, that it's something like yoga is something I don't want to let go of now. Um, but yeah, new hobbies. No, maybe in part because I was really busy too. Like I had a business I was running, I was taking care of my parents, and maybe now I have time to find more hobbies now that my schedule's more flexible. But it was more of a returning to things that I had just let had not become. I just didn't have the capacity to focus on them.
So
Yeah.
you didn't then necessarily find it as daunting when you got there, like what am I going to do now? Who am I going to be? That kind of thing.
No, because as I was realizing, it just felt good to be getting back into things that I enjoyed. So it didn't feel daunting. It felt like a relief. It just felt like a huge relief.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
not putting that pressure on yourself, like, right, I'm recovered. Now I need to fill this space with XYZ. You're just like actually more at peace with just being,
Yeah.
just
Yes.
being you without all of this like clutter in your mind. And
Yes.
that's just so powerful in itself, isn't it? Just not even not needing to fill that time with everything. And even something I wanted to ask you, Pamela, is what you were saying with like the yoga, because you did say that your eating disorder kind of shape shifted as
Hmm.
most people's does. So how did you kind of like protect yourself through that? Because I'm even noticing like on social media, there is so much about the menopause and doing this and doing that and how you got to eat this and move in this way.
Mm.
How did you kind of like stay in your own lane and with being like, this doesn't apply to us. This is like this does not apply to me, and I've got to only take the stuff that is helpful to my recovery and not take on stuff that is going to get me further in the eating disorder. Because I think that's something that people are struggling with at the moment. There is a lot of health advice out there, whether it's for the menopause or for people younger, to eat in a certain way. How did you kind of keep that? Like Meg talks about a glass dome over yourself, staying in your own
Mm.
lane. How did you manage that through that process?
One, well, actually, Meg's show helped me at one point because I remember, Meg, you were talking about during pregnancy and all the advice in the books that were telling you to eat this diet or not do that diet, and you emphasizing that I can't like stay in my own lane. I have to protect my recovery. So, um, so I was getting that messaging from your channel, and I think in the beginning it was a little nerve-wracking and probably and kept me dabbling because I'd get enough information and then I would doubt it and fall back and get enough information. But then I was getting encouragement and reinforcement from the recovery group online that I was in. And I'm very lucky that it was a group that was recovery focused. Some groups you can, like I learned early on that there's some groups you can join and they're more just kind of not ready for recovery. So it's all about sharing about the eating disorder still. So it was reaching out for help,
Yeah,
reaching out to like looking for the information online, reaching out for help, which was really difficult for me. It still is. It's still something I work on.
yeah.
And then at some point, and somebody in the group said at one point, um, protect something about protecting your mind at all cost. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, it's not just about the physical. It's not because
Mm.
I would get up, like you said, Sophia, like it's so easy to get pulled back in um, with the food and the body, the weight conversation. And then something about that click, protect your mind at all costs. And I remember thinking, oh, right, that's what I'm really healing. And so that was something I would keep in mind too. Like when I found my thought straying, I'd be like, no, how is that going to affect my mental health?
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
I was talking to a client about that this week, about like the eating disorder so quick to fire, but what about this? But what about this? What about this number? What about your weight? What about, and I was like, do you ever stop and say, but what about my life? Like, but what about
Mm.
the
Oh,
person?
that's
What
great.
about my time on this planet? Because that actually is at the total cost. Like that's what's being sacrificed for this focus on, but what about this number? but it's
Yeah.
like balancing the question out and being like having a, but what about my life? But what about my time on the planet? That kind of thing.
What a perfect response. Yeah, I love that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true.
I'd love to go back to something you said before about feeling some grief over like your body. And I was
Hmm.
wondering in both directions, actually, like now, do you experience moments of feeling grief over losses of the eating disorder? But equally, do you feel grief over years of having had the eating disorder?
I don't like I've been recovered for a while, so I don't experience that grief right now. I did at some point during the process of recovery, the lost years, that I what helped me with that was to think, I remember a long time ago when I first admitted to someone that I had an eating disorder, like I'm talking decades before I decided to recover. Um, she said to me, "It's not your fault."
Mm.
And then so I would return to that. It's not my fault and it's not a choice. And it didn't make the grief go away right away, but it helped me to get some perspective. And I would also think to myself, um, that there could be all kinds of other things that might have got in the way too, And so just trying to come to a place of peace that it wasn't my fault, that I didn't choose it, and understanding what were the contributing factors, and also reminding myself that I can't get that time back. So, but what I can do is focus on how I want to have my life be right now and what do I want it to look like moving forward. And I remember at one point, I think it was Mia's channel, she said she had, I think a therapist or someone asked her to like sit down and imagine what your life will be like when you're 50. And that was like a stab in the heart because I was like, "Ugh, that's where I am." I was like, oh no. And so that it hurt, but it was a wake-up call. I was like, well, my life's not over at 50. And I remember hearing somebody say too, even just 1 week without the eating disorder is worth it. Even if you recover and God forbid something happens and you only have a week left on earth, that 1 week itself is going to be worth it. And
Yeah.
so it was like snippets like that that I would pick up online when I say I was like cobbling together the resources for my recovery. It's kind of like you find what you're looking for, you know. So,
Mm.
Me
mm,
too. I think that compassion, that self-compassion piece is so important of not blaming yourself and being like, that is the skills I had at that moment, and now I know better, so I can do better. I have more tools at my um, fingertips to use to get better, but it's a hard one. And like you said, then making the most of the time that you've got left. And like you said, 1 week, I think that's what you say, Meg, a lot. Actually, I think I've heard you say that a few times as well. Like if you've only got 1 week, it's worth it. Mm. In fact, I
mm,
think if you had 1 week, you would just do it because you would be like, right, that's it. I've got 1 week.
yes.
I'm just going to do it. Yeah, I think it's the fact that we always feel like we have so much time in life. Like we've got years. I'll do it next year. I'll do it next year. It feels bad right now,
Mm,
whatever. But actually, if we realized how precious life is, I think people would do it a bit quicker, maybe. I don't know.
mm. No, I think that's true. 'Cause I remember having that thought too. I remember being out on a walk and thinking of all these things I wanted to do. I'm like, oh, I can do that in a few years. And then again, my fantasy of thinking I was still 35. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Got to readjust my time perspective here. Um, but yeah, and it's easy to fall down that trap, like I said, of like thinking like of the milestones that are behind me. Like,
Mm.
I'm not recovering to have a family. I'm not recovering for the dream job. And I let that get in the way for a while. And then I had to think, and I had to reckon with myself and again just surrender to think, but you don't know, Pamela. You don't know what's on the horizon for you. You have no idea. Right.
Mm.
Um and now I have some great solid friends that I've met through recovery too. Um, like you have no idea what life's gonna have in store for you.
Mm.
Yeah.
And do
Um,
you feel any grief towards the loss of the eating disorder, like the pining over what you had from it. Like, I think when you're going through recovery, there can be a feeling of like, but what if I regret it? Or how will I ever cope if I lose this thing that I love about it? Like, there must be purposes that it serves, and the fear of losing that bit that it's serving. Do you feel now on the other side, like, oh yeah, I have lost that and I really wish I still had it?
Oh God, no. Yeah, no, that is gone completely. No, no.
Incredible.
Um,
It's
you
amazing,
can,
isn't it?
you couldn't pay me to go back.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
I bet at the
It's
time,
just,
did you feel like that? Like, to me, it's so convincing, that feeling of like, this, I'm gonna forever regret this, or I'll forever feel disgusted about this, or something like that.
yes, many times, especially during when your body is changing and
Mm.
you're coming to term, like you're practicing the surrender. And um, yeah, there were many days of fear, and also I think I had a complicated relationship with my parents. Like there was a lot of people pleasing going on, and I lived in a family that was victims of diet culture too, right? So there was all that messaging, and you know, I'm 50 something, and I'm afraid of what my parents are going to think of me.
Mm,
Mm.
And I would say that to myself. I'm like, Pamela. But when you get to a place where you're really, I had to come to terms with what did that mean? Like, what did the eating disorder mean? And really think about what that life was like. And and as I said, my priorities were shifting. And like, did the me who was all caught up in the eating disorder, am I going to be like the best advocate for my parents right now? Am I going to be like the best help for them? And like, they don't have many years left. And if, how am I going to be present with them if I'm so absorbed, you
Wow.
know, in the
mm,
eating disorder? And um, so, yeah, I did experience a lot of that. I don't now whatsoever.
mm. That's good
Yeah.
to know. I think even we spoke to someone this week, Sophia and I did together, and she was talking about this, and she's like, but is it like you recover with the brain you've got now, and then you're in a different body at a different stage, but your same brain is planted into that body? And I was like, that's such a good way to think about it, because it's not that,
Mm,
is it? Like, you're not, that
mm-mm.
would be painful. And that, what you're mentioning there, like, there is a period where it feels icky because you're kind of still got the same old brain wiring, but your body's changing, or
Yeah.
it is. But then I think once you do get beyond it and life becomes more fulfilling and enjoyable and that kind of thing, then you, like, to me as well, I'm exactly the same. There is no part of me that has any rose tinted glasses over it at all. But there was a period where I very strongly did, and it was quite difficult,
Yes.
like, complete the picture on it and remember, like, no, it's not this amazing thing I'm remembering it to be, or,
Mm.
even if it
Yeah.
did give me something, it came at a massive life cost, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the hardest. That I think is one of the hardest stages of recovery, where your brain still it has a lot of rewiring to do, but your body's changing, and like recovery asks you to completely overhaul your belief system.
Mm.
Like, and when I say that to people, I'm like, you know, imagine like in the United States anyway. I'm like, imagine you're a, a staunch Joe Biden supporter, and someone's asking you to believe in Donald Trump, and the reverse. You're a staunch
Yep.
Donald Trump supporter. Now someone's like, oh, no, no, that's wrong. Those aren't your beliefs anymore. Now you're a strong Joe Biden supporter. And that's how uncomfortable recovery can be, because you have this ingrained belief system, and that's being echoed and mirrored in the world at large.
Yep.
And you're being asked um, to to see the light. To
Or
that
to
that's not
act
a
in
belief.
line with the light that you can't even see. Like, you have a brain
Yeah,
literally
yes.
wired around an eating disorder, and you have to do actions as if you don't have an eating disorder. And it's excruciating to do it whilst you
Hmm.
don't have that brain. Your brain hasn't caught up yet.
Yes, yes. But once you do get on the other side, yeah, you don't have the same you don't have the same brain. You have a recovered brain. Yeah, no, I would feel like the most dishonest person in the world if I were recovered and had the same brain and was trying to coach people to get to that same uncomfortable place to have a different body and the same brain. I wouldn't be able to live with myself.
Mm.
Mm.
I sometimes say I've
Yeah.
had a brain transplant. I don't know if you feel like
Yes.
that. I can't, it's night
Yes.
and day. I feel like a different person. It's
Yes.
unfathomable how different I am today.
Yeah. It's strange, right? Like you're a completely different person, but yet you're more disconnected to the person who you really are. It's a
Yeah, yeah.
A good way
yeah.
of saying it, isn't it? That you can even forget things. I don't know if you both find that, but and you're talking to a client, you're like, oh yeah, I did experience that. I've totally forgot about that. That was a part of my daily worries or life and everything. And so yeah, it's incredible how life can change. And Pamela, if there was something like an advice that you would give to somebody who is recovering later on in life, like is there any particular advice that you would give? Anything that you would want somebody to kind of take away from this podcast the most?
Um, yes, that there's always hope, that you're not broken. Your metabolism, that was a big fear for me and a lot of my clients. Your
Mhm.
metabolism's not broken. Menopause or not, your metabolism is still not broken. Your brain's not broken. Um, it is it is possible. Neuroplasticity is still there at any age. And yeah, and that it's never too late. Like that you don't trust the voice that's telling you it's too late. It's never too late. Mm, yeah.
Such good advice. And I feel like the online community was such a powerful part of your recovery. Have you got any advice to people who are then wanting to seek something similar? Like, how did you make sure you did find the right community, or is there a particular organization where other people can still join it?
The yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. It was a while. Well, in the beginning, it was trial and error, right? When figuring out what your values are, what your recovery values are, and what recovery sites you're being drawn to. The Facebook group I joined, I forget what it was called at the time. Now it's called Eating Disorder Recovery Support, and I actually moderate it now with another coach, Kate Ely.
Amazing.
Um,
Link that in the show notes for people then.
Definitely. That's
okay.
brilliant.
Put the link, yeah.
Yeah. And there's people there from all over the world, all different demographics. And um, I forget what you asked me, Sophia, what my advice be for
In terms of
people?
finding one of, like, I guess yours,
Oh,
number one,
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, what advice would you be? Because you're right, like sometimes you can, with the best of intentions, accidentally get caught up in maybe one that's not so helpful. But I do think sometimes you feel that yourself.
You
Sometimes
do.
it's about listening to your inner voice of realizing, like, if I'm going on this, I'm being triggered, or I'm saying, like you mentioned at one point maybe you can go to a therapist and they might not say the right thing. You're like, oh,
Mm.
that doesn't feel right. So I don't know if that's something that's helped.
Yeah. Yeah. In part, trusting your instinct or being able to ask yourself which part of me is being drawn to this.
Yes.
Um, when I was in recovery and I was in that support group, we were all sharing information, so I was learning from other people, right? And I would also hear sharing, getting information about what accounts to follow and what accounts not to follow. There was always a lot of scuttlebutt, like whenever there was like a bit of a scandal in the recovery world, right? There'd be all this conversation there online. And so it was really, I think it's really important to have someone that you can trust to run these things by too, whether it's somebody else that you trust in recovery, or if you do have a treatment team in place, it's good to, especially because I know when I'm working with clients, there's a lot of confusion sometimes about whether they're listening to their eating disorder or the recovery self, and the lines are blurry. They're not sure.
Yeah.
Um, and often I tell them if it feels like it's coming from a place of fear or urgency, then it's probably not coming from the part of you that you want to be paying attention to. So I think being able to run it by other people too, like especially if you get that gut instinct that, oh, I'm not sure. And I would also say that any recovery account that seems to be hyper focused on appearance or making sure that they're somehow like they're drawing attention to their physical self, or how am I trying to say this? Like there's
Mm.
certain accounts where you can tell that there's, even though it's unspoken, the behaviors suggest that there's still a lot of angst for that person around their appearance. And recovery, it's so easy, especially in the beginning, recovery to get caught up in just the appearance and the food, which makes sense because that's where your brain is focused. But keeping in mind that recovery is about rewiring your thoughts too. So if there's a lot of focus on the body and not a lot of focus on the thoughts, that can be a red flag.
Mm.
Mm.
Did you find the groups comparative in any way? Did it feel like a competitive? Because sometimes the space of bringing eating disorders together can bring like
Mm.
triggers and comparison, that kind of thing. Like, did you get a sense of that, or like, how did you feel around that?
This group, no. This group, everybody, it was really, I just feel really lucky. I can't remember how I stumbled upon it, but I think it was through another um, person who was in the recovery sphere at the time. She's not in it anymore. But I was very lucky. The group was really supportive. It was just one of those things, one of those times, I guess everybody was sort of in a similar place in recovery, and everybody was just cheering one another on. I had been in other groups where it didn't feel that way,
Mm.
and so I left. But that's great. That's great though, Meg, because that's another red flag too, right? If you find yourself being triggered or you're not feeling supported or you're feeling the group is making you feel more nervous than encouraged, then it's probably not the group for you at that phase in your recovery.
I think you can
Mm.
tell these things as well. Like even through Instagram and stuff, you can tell,
Mm.
how am I feeling at the end of this? Like, do I feel like, I don't know, I've been laughing at things and I feel like energized and whatever, or have I left feeling like insecure, not good enough? I wish I was that
Mhm.
person. I wish I did more of this. Why am I this? You know, there are definitely accounts that fill you up versus things that leave you feeling not good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And when I'm working with clients to curate their feed, right, that's a conversation we
Uh-huh.
have too. And when I was in recovery, I wish I had someone that said, maybe you should bring some older people into your feed, Pamela, because
Mm.
reminding yourself that there's still life to live out there, no matter what your body looks like and no matter what your age is too. But
Mm.
Do
yeah,
you mean like
because
generally, Pamela, like generally people of all ages, like
yeah,
not recovery people? Because yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, Yeah, because a lot of the ways I support, I think one of the things you had me thinking about, and I love this question, was like, how do I support people my age at recovery who are going through recovery? And so much of it is similar to how I would support someone at any age in recovery, like reconnecting with your values and, well, number one, meeting them where they're at, but helping them find compassion for whatever compassion at this age for what feels like the loss, and sometimes I have clients who feel badly that they're afraid they negatively influence their children with
Mm.
their behaviors, and helping them to, again, see that it wasn't their fault and look at what the influences were in their life at that time, and recognizing that maybe you contributed to something, but you didn't make someone get an eating disorder. There's like their biopsychosocial illnesses. So to not beat yourself up or feel guilty that you passed it along to someone, because I don't think that's, like, I know that's not true,
Mm.
right? Um, like I can think of my own family messages I picked up, but that's not what made me develop an eating disorder. It just was a contributing factor. So helping them find the um, compassion and help them realize that one of the values you can have at our age recovering is like your legacy, like the story that you're rewriting for yourself and for your family, and how you want to what do you want to model moving forward to your friends, your family. Um, but otherwise, a lot of the work is similar no matter what the age, like having more compassion, bringing more curiosity, um, yeah, connecting to your values and thinking about what kind of person you want to be. Mm.
And so you've trained as a Carolyn Costin CCI eating disorder recovery coach now. You said
Yes.
2023, was it?
Yes, I was
Years
certified in
now.
23.
Yeah. So would you like to tell us a bit about like, can people find you, work with you? What's the sort of work that you do as a coach?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you can find me. My website is PamelaEvaRecovery.com, and Pamela Eva Recovery is my handle on Instagram. Kate Ely and um, Kate, I actually met in that recovery group online. We were both in recovery at the same time, and then we reconnected and discovered we were in the CCI program at the same time. And anyway, she and I are also working on podcast. It's going to be Humans of Eating Disorders.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah. And we're
Amazing.
working on the episodes now. All we have out is the trailer, but that information you find on my website too. And I work with clients. I'm based in Connecticut in the United States, so I work virtually anywhere and locally, and I can work locally with clients in Connecticut as well. Um, yeah, and right now I work with clients across the age spectrum. Yeah, but I have a special place in my heart, of course, for people that are wrestling with midlife changes and going through recovery too. Mhm.
Do you find just generally from recovery, like I feel like I have such a special place in my heart for people with eating disorders and in recovery generally. Like it's just
Mhm.
my brain's not in it in that way anymore, but I just feel like that my heart is changed from it. Like I just feel such a like kinship, or I don't know what it is, like such a connection to people going through it. Like I just think it's the most phenomenal, incredible thing anyone can do. Like the changes,
Yeah.
and it's so misunderstood, like how difficult it is and how life-changing it is. I just
Yeah.
incredible thing
Yeah.
to do.
I wish I'd thought of this when you asked me if my brain had changed. I remember a friend when she found out I was going into coaching, she's like, "Aren't you afraid it will trigger you?" I'm like, "No, absolutely not.
Mm,
If anything, you have so much more empathy for you have all this empathy for people going through it. And if anything, it just solidifies your recovery.
totally, totally.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah,
You,
absolutely.
and you're so excited to be in a place to be able to help someone, even if full recovery is not their desire at the moment, just helping someone get into a space where their quality of life is improving is it's hard to put into words how rewarding that is.
Mm.
Yeah, I feel very grateful that coaching exists right now. Mhm. Yeah.
This has been amazing. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed talking to you so, so much.
Oh, I have loved it. Really, it's been an honor.
Thank you so much. Honestly, your clients are extremely lucky to have you. I feel like I just
Oh,
keep talking to you myself. You've just got,
Yeah.
oh,
yeah,
oh.
Feels very
you've just got,
warm. I feel very warm
you're
from the
so
conversation.
warm, so kind, and just like full of wisdom and knowledge. And I just want to keep soaking it up. So honestly, this chat's been incredible. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, if years down the line, if you're ever feeling the need to surrender a bit more to aging, you can reach out to me. I'm
Do you know,
here for you.
I saw a thing on Instagram that was like diet culture robs the first half of your life and anti-aging robs the second,
I saw
or
that
something like that.
too.
And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, so true.
Yeah. It is. But it won't for you because
It does
you're
a
in
bit
this
more of
place
a
of acceptance and yeah, you don't have you don't have that brain anymore.
I
That's
also
where you
saw something
are.
that was like, it's not my job to be pretty for you, or something like that. And that's
Mm.
stuck in my head as well. I'm like, yeah, I don't have to. Like sometimes I go out the house now these days looking so scruffy. Really,
I
I'm
know.
like, is this okay? Is this acceptable? And I'm like, do you know what? It's not my job for anyone to think I look good. Think I look
Like, who cares?
Absolutely.
I know, I know.
Absolutely.
Actually, my boyfriend said to me, I can't remember what the context was a couple of weeks ago, but I was looking shabby and I was going out, and he's like, "You're going out like that?" I was like, "Yeah, and
Oh, I've
and
had this conversation with my husband. This must be a thing. I'm like, yes, yes. I thought this was absolutely fine.
Passes the bar
I
these
know,
days.
I know. I
You,
think of younger me that would have been mortified if anybody saw me
yeah.
outside the house, just mortified. Yeah,
Mhm.
and now I'm like, whatever, bring it on. Who cares? Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah. So that's freedom too. Yeah, I forgot about that. Thank you, Meg.
So, Pamela, thank you so, so much for coming on the podcast. I have loved this chat so much. And we've mentioned a few resources that we can link in the show notes, your Instagram, um, even the name of your podcast, your Facebook community that you moderate, that kind of thing. But honestly, thank you. I have just loved chatting to you and getting to meet you.
Oh, it's been an honor, and I've just adored being able to meet you too. So thank you very much. And I hope this resonates and helps some people to feel a little bit more confident about choosing recovery. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Pamela. You've honestly been just an absolute source of knowledge and wisdom and so much kindness, and your clients are very lucky to have you. So thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I think you're going to give a lot of hope and a lot of strength to people recovering later on in life, but also I think everybody who's recovering, because there was just so much to take away from that. So we appreciate you so much.
Oh, well, I've loved being here. Thank you. Thank you.